So I want to review the movie Deadpool, and I want to say that, Deadpool and Wolverine, I did not really enjoy this film. I felt that, it was a very repetitive movie, and there's a couple of reasons why I say that. First of all, with it, that, through the movie and through all the Deadpool movies, you kind of can see a consistent pattern of them using movie in a very gaudy way. And what that means is like you see the intro of Deadpool and you see him kill a bunch of people, and they set it to NSYNC's Bye 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 because, there's people who like that song a lot, and there's a lot of people who like Deadpool who were born in the 90s. And he also, when he also does dance moves to certain parts of the song, to certain beats of the song, he fires his gun at certain beats of the song. And there's really no problem doing that. But the problem is that if you do that multiple times in a movie, it really loses its effect, really. It becomes a little too repetitive to kind of just like sync music to violence and actions. I do think that they've done that in multiple Deadpool movies, so it does feel like they're following the Deadpool formula. The one thing that I will say that I love about this film is that that there was some foreshadowing, but they did not kind of put it in your face like they did in the prior Deadpool movies. But I do understand that, it definitely foreshadowing is important. But if you're kind of like putting it in people's faces or you're satirizing that that's what people do in movies, I do think that if you do that joke one time or two times, that's okay. But if you do it multiple times, it becomes the Conway Twitty gag. So I'm happy, like the Conway Twitty gag from Family Guy, where they overly do, they overdo one joke, one gag, really. But the way they did the music was a little overdone. But what I would also say about the film was that, I really also another thing you see in Deadpool movies is that they take a character like this guy named Peter, and all the other characters kind of treat him like a big deal and whatever. So sometimes you see that in the Deadpool films where they take a character, like Joe the plumber, and then everybody's like cheering and acting like he's a big deal. And I understand, it's part of absurdity, because you don't randomly take some Joe Smo and treat him like a big deal, really, But that's just what they do in the Deadpool movie, because they've done that in many different films, and I felt that, it was a little repetitive. But I would talk about that, there's definitely also lost. And then also, I think another thing I didn't like was they introduced a couple of characters. They introduced like Gambit, and I was very happy to see that because Gambit, Marvel vs. Capcom, he always had like this really badass type of look, really. So I was happy to see Gambit. I was happy to see Wesley Snipes as Blade. But definitely, like I've said before, that, that happens in a lot of Deadpool films where they introduce characters just to pop the crowd, really. So there was a lot of kind of I would say, hype moments. And I do understand in films, definitely that works. And it's good to pop the audience. It creates a sense of catharsis. It creates a sense of like, hell yeah, type of thing. But as I said, if you overdo it, if you do it way too much, if you kind of repeat that in every movie that you see, it really loses its luster. I think they kind of just took what worked in other Deadpool films and they kind of just copy and pasted it to this film. And then it just feels a little cliche. Like I've said, it feels like, Family Guy with Peter versus the chicken, or the Conway Twitty gag. It feels a little repetitive. And I know, I'm a fan of South Park, but South Park, I think what South Park does best is that sometimes they may have a gag and they kind of feature the gag in just one episode, like repeating a joke over and over, or sometimes they have, so the stories are almost very different in every episode, even though it's the same formula of, a situation, the situation gets messed up, the situation gets resolved, and then there's a moral. But I did feel, when you watch something like South Park, they do a good job of just not, what's the word? Almost like doing the same formula over and over, but there's so many other things that are compelling that you don't really think about it. You don't say it feels cliche. I don't feel a sense of cliche. But when you watch something like Deadpool, I feel like, a lot of the things they do in the other Deadpool films are so like gaudy and are so like gaudy and they make these things stand out a lot that when you repeat these in other films, it definitely just you're like, here we go again, really. But I will say that one thing I liked about this film is I did like the messages. I think that Hugh Jackman did a great job as Wolverine, and I really liked, his story of being somebody, from like in the film, Deadpool has to search multiple universes and find like a Wolverine to bring to his universe because that's the only way to save his universe's timeline. What happens in Deadpool is that because he's immortal, there's this company that wants him and that wants him to kind of travel to different universes and be a hero of multiple universes. And the other reason why they take him is because they wanted him to understand that because Wolverine's not in his universe timeline, that what's going to happen is that his universe is going to just vaporize and disappear, really. So Deadpool searches multiple universes to find a Wolverine that he can take from that universe and bring it to the universe that we live in. And he finds like a Wolverine that's just down in his luck, that did something really regrettable. And Hugh Jackman really played that. He really played a character that doesn't believe in himself, that knows he's a loser, that sacrifices himself, that needs to learn the power of friendship, and also needs to learn that sometimes we do stupid and horrible things, but sometimes your failures really don't define you. So there's a difference between somebody who does 100 bad things and then they choose to do 100 good things, and there's a difference and that's different from a person who does 100 bad things and they continue to do 100 more bad things, or somebody who does 100 bad things, they may do 10 good things, and then they're kind of like, I don't feel that I'm a good person, so I'm not going to do anything else with my life. I'm just going to, stagnate, really. So I do think that's ultimately one of the main messages is just, forgiving yourself, really, and just understanding you still can make a difference even if you made a bunch of mistakes. As somebody, and I'll share this, that I gotten fired from a job, and now I work at a hospital, and I've been kicking ass and taking names and doing a really great job, really. So I definitely understand that type of, instead of holding myself back because of my guilt and my shame of my old mistakes, I'm really going forward and working very hard to just do the right thing and make a difference, really. So my past I've learned from my past has helped me become a better person. The mistakes that I've made are the mistakes, but learning from those mistakes, redeeming myself from those mistakes, have made me a really good person. And that's true with Wolverine. And that's a very human theme. We shouldn't let our mistakes define us. And I think the other theme is about friendship and sacrifice and finding your purpose. And sometimes your purpose is just to care about your friends and everything like that and build friendships, or just understand that, maybe there's fate that brings people together and you can just fight against it, or you shouldn't fight against it. The next thing that I would say is that, I think overall it was an okay film. I do think, as I said, it felt very repetitive, and they took a lot of things from the other Deadpool films and they applied it to this one. So I did feel it was a little cliche and repetitive. So I definitely think that